The halls of Providence Station stretched like veins through the massive structure floating in neutral space. Ambassador Hannah Park walked these corridors with the same measured grace she had shown for the past 12 years. Her black diplomatic uniform bore the simple emblem of Earth, a blue circle on white background. Nothing fancy, nothing threatening, just like humanity preferred to present itself to the galaxy. She entered the council chambers where 200 species gathered under the dome of projected stars. Each species had their own ideas about power and diplomacy. The Thelvans believed in trade supremacy. The Korthi valued honor above all else. The Rillian collective operated on pure logic and mathematics. And then there were the Vraken. The Vraken Empire controlled 47 star systems through military might. Their ships were brutal wedges of dark metal covered in weapon ports. Their soldiers stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and thick armored skin. For 3 centuries they had expanded through conquest and intimidation. Smaller species paid them tribute to avoid destruction. The Galactic Council tolerated them because fighting the Vraken meant massive casualties. War Chief Thorax dominated the Vraken section of the chamber. His scarred face and battle decorations told stories of dozens of victories. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. The human colonies of New Jeju, Horizon's End, and Terra Nova will be transferred to Vraken control within 30 solar days. Thorax announced. This is not negotiation. This is fact. Hannah Park stood slowly, around the chamber. Representatives from other species watched with mixed expressions. Some showed pity for humanity. Others showed relief that the Vraken had chosen a different target this time. War Chief Thorax, Hannah said calmly. Earth wishes to explore alternative arrangements. Perhaps increase trade between our peoples? We have agricultural technology that could benefit Vraken worlds, or mining techniques for asteroid extraction. We could establish joint research facilities. Thorax laughed, a harsh barking sound. You offer us trinkets and technology? We take what we want. Your colonies are rich worlds. We will use them. You have 30 days to evacuate your people or they become Vraken property as well. We request more time for discussion, Hannah replied, her voice still level and professional. 30 days. Not 1 hour more. Thorax turned away, dismissing her completely. The council session ended. As representatives filed out, Hannah noticed the looks. The Thelvans shook their heads sadly. The Korthi averted their eyes, ashamed but unwilling to intervene. The Rillians calculated probabilities and found humanity's chances of survival mathematically insignificant. Commander Junho Kim waited for her outside the chamber. He wore the gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic security force. His face remained neutral, but his eyes were hard. They think we're weak, he said quietly as they walked toward the human section of the station. They think we're peaceful, Hannah corrected. There's a difference. Is there? When the result is the same? Hannah stopped walking and looked at him directly. Junho, we've been part of this galactic community for 150 years. In that time, we've never fired the first shot, never started a war, never broken a treaty. Do you know why? Because Command ordered us not to. Because we remember what we were, what we're capable of becoming. She resumed walking. Every species out here looks at us and sees diplomats, patient negotiators. They don't see the history books. They don't know about the world wars or the nuclear age. They don't understand that we chose this path because we knew the alternative. They reached the human quarters where Captain Minho Choi and Lieutenant Yuna Lee waited in the briefing room. The room was simple, functional, with star charts displayed on the walls and a long metal table in the center. The Vraken won't back down, Minho said immediately. I've studied their history. They've never withdrawn a territorial demand. Yuna pulled up data on her tablet. New Jeju has 4.3 million civilians. Horizon's End has 2.8 million. Terra Nova has 6.1 million. Total evacuation would require every transport ship we have in at least 90 days. We have 30, Junho said. Then we can save maybe half, Yuna replied quietly. Hannah sat down heavily. For a moment her diplomatic mask slipped and she looked tired, so very tired. I'll return to Earth. I'll speak with the Council of Nations. Perhaps we can... Her communicator buzzed. She answered immediately. Ambassador Park, this is Admiral Sang-Hoon Baek from Earth Command. The voice was gravel rough and absolutely serious. You are to continue diplomatic efforts for the next 30 days. Maintain our peaceful stance. Show no aggression. Is that clear? Yes, Admiral. And if diplomacy fails? There was a long pause. Then I have been authorized by the United Earth government to implement Protocol Omega. The room went silent. Juno's face went pale. Minho and Yuna exchanged glances. Admiral, Hana said carefully, Protocol Omega hasn't been activated since the Unification Wars. That was over 200 years ago. I'm aware of the history, Ambassador. I'm also aware that we developed Protocol Omega for a specific reason. We hoped we'd never need it. But hope is not strategy. What are my orders? Negotiate. Try everything. Offer them everything short of surrender. But prepare everyone for what comes if talking fails. Back out. The communication ended. Hana set down her device and looked at her team. What is Protocol Omega? Yuna asked. She was young, only 32, and had never served during wartime. Minho answered, his voice quiet. It's what humanity becomes when we stop being polite. I don't understand. Junho stood and walked to the window overlooking the docking bays. Dozens of ships from 100 worlds floated in organized chaos. Lieutenant, do you know why Earth maintains such a small visible military? Why we only have 100 warships registered with the Galactic Council? Because we're a peaceful species? No, because we don't want to scare them. He turned back to face her. Those 100 ships are just what we show them. What we register. What we let them count. Yuna's eyes widened. How many ships do we actually have? That's classified above your pay grade, Hana said. But Yuna, I need you to understand something. For 150 years, humanity has followed one simple rule when dealing with other species. We choose peace first. We negotiate. We compromise, we bend. We absorb insults and threats. Do you know why? Because it's the right thing to do? Because we're terrified of what happens if we don't. Hana stood up. Every human learns history. We know what our species did to itself. The wars, the genocides, the atomic weapons that nearly ended everything. We joined the galactic community determined to be better than our past. But the Fracken don't care about our good intentions, Minho added. No, they don't. Hana gathered her materials. I'll spend the next 30 days trying every diplomatic option. I'll beg if I have to. But if those talks fail, she paused at the doorway, then the galaxy is going to learn a very hard lesson about mistaking politeness for weakness. After she left, the three officers sat in silence. Finally, Yuna spoke. What happens if Protocol Omega is activated? Junho looked at the star chart on the wall, at the Vrakan systems marked in red. Then we remind them why humanity's most dangerous weapon isn't our technology. It's our memory. Governor Daeho Song stood on the observation deck of New Jeju's orbital station and watched the sunrise over his world. The planet below was beautiful, covered in green farmland and blue oceans. 4.3 million people called this place home. They had built schools and hospitals and parks. They had created a peaceful society light years from Earth. He had been governor for 8 years. Before that, he had served in the Earth Marines for 20 years. He remembered combat. He remembered what war looked like. And he remembered why humanity had sworn to avoid it. Governor, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, his aide said. Daeho turned away from the window. Put it through. Admiral Sang-hoon Bayek's face appeared on the screen. The old warrior looked grim. Governor Song, the diplomatic situation has not improved. You need to begin evacuation procedures immediately. Admiral, we have 30 days. We can get maybe 2 million people off-world in that time. I know the numbers, Daeho. I also know what's coming if diplomacy fails. Start with the children, then the elderly, then everyone else you can fit on a ship. And the rest? What about the rest? Beck's jaw tightened. If Protocol Omega is activated, the Vrakan will learn that threatening human civilians was their biggest mistake. But I can't protect anyone who's still on New Jeju when they arrive. Get as many out as you can. The transmission ended. Daeho immediately called his department heads together. Within an hour, every transport ship in the system began loading passengers. The evacuation was orderly at first. Families said goodbye to homes they had lived in for generations. Farmers looked at fields they would never harvest. Teachers locked up empty schools. But as the days passed and the Fracken deadline approached, order began to crack. There weren't enough ships. There would never be enough ships. Ensign Hyejin An managed the communications array from the orbital station. She was 24 years old and had never seen combat. Her job was to coordinate the evacuation transports and maintain contact with Earth Command. On day 31, her sensors detected the Vraken fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel. "Governor, they're here." 47 warships. "They're in attack formation." Daeho rushed to the command center. "Hail them!" "Open all frequencies." Heejin worked her console frantically. "Channel open, sir. This is Governor Daeho Song of New Jeju Colony. We are evacuating as agreed. We request additional time to complete the process. We are not armed and pose no threat." The Vraken response came quickly. War Chief Thorax appeared on screen, his forearms crossed over his massive chest. "Your 30 days have expired. This world now belongs to the Vraken Empire. We just need a few more days, please. I did not come here to occupy. I came here to teach a lesson." Thorax gestured to someone off screen. "Let the galaxy see what happens to those who resist Vraken demands." The transmission cut off. Seconds later, alarms screamed throughout the station. "Energy spikes. They're charging weapons!" Heejin shouted. "All ships emergency burn. Get away from the planet now!" Daeho ordered. The Vraken fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles rained down on New Jeju from orbit. The first target was Capital City, home to 800,000 people. The city simply vanished in a flash of white light. Then the school districts. Then the hospital zones. Then the residential sectors. Dr. Jiwon Kang was in Capital City's main hospital when the bombardment began. She was treating a child with a broken arm when the world exploded into fire. The last thing she thought about was how she would never see her daughter again. From the orbital station, Daeho watched his world die. Cities burned. Oceans boiled. The atmosphere itself began to catch fire as the bombardment continued. "How many ships got out?" he asked, his voice hollow. 37 transports cleared the gravity well," Heejin reported, tears streaming down her face. "Roughly 1.2 million evacuees. 3.1 million people remained on the surface. They died in the next 20 minutes." Heejin's hands moved across her console. "Sir, I can route our entire sensor feed to Earth Command and the Galactic Council. Everything, all frequencies. Maximum broadcast," Daeho nodded. "Do it, let them see." "Let everyone see." The footage went out on every channel. The galaxy watched as the Vraken fleet systematically destroyed a peaceful human colony. They watched schools explode, hospitals melt, parks turn to ash, children dying, parents dying, an entire civilization ending. The bombardment lasted 3 hours. When it finished, New Jeju was a smoking ruin. The oceans were acid. The atmosphere was poison. Nothing would live there for 1,000 years. Heejin sent one final transmission before the Vraken destroyed the orbital station. Her voice was steady despite her tears. "This is Ensign Heejin. Last communication from New Jeju Colony. 3.1 million civilians confirmed dead. The Vraken Empire has committed genocide. Tell Earth," her voice cracked. "Tell Earth that we died believing in peace. But tell them that some things are worth fighting for. On out." The transmission ended as plasma fire consumed the station. On Providence Station, Ambassador Hana Park watched the footage in the emergency council session. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Around her, representatives from 200 species sat in shocked silence. War Chief Thorax stood in the Vraken section, looking satisfied. "Let this serve as example. The Vraken Empire does not negotiate. We take what we want." Humanity had their chance to comply. Hana Park stood slowly. Her diplomatic mask, maintained for 12 years of service, finally shattered. When she spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze stars. "For 150 years, humanity chose politeness. We chose patience. We chose peace." She looked directly at Thorax. "You have now chosen our response." "Empty threats from a weak species," Thorax laughed. "No, not threats. Prophecy." Hana gathered her materials. "Earth hereby recalls all ambassadors from all postings. We are closing all diplomatic channels. We withdraw from all treaties and agreements. You cannot survive alone in this galaxy," Thorax said. "We survived alone for millennia before we met you. We'll survive long after you're gone." She walked toward the exit, then paused. "Oh, and War Chief? You wanted to teach a lesson about power. Consider your wish granted." She left the chamber. Behind her, representatives began shouting questions. What would humanity do? Would they seek council intervention? Would they negotiate? Commander Junho Kim waited outside with his security team. His face was carved from stone. "Orders from Earth Command," Hana asked. "Protocol Omega is active. Admiral Bayek sends his regards and says to tell you that the adults are handling it from here." "What are our orders?" "We're to stay on Providence Station and watch. Earth wants witnesses. Witnesses to what?" Yunho's smile was terrible to see. "To what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized." Across human space, warships that had been hidden for generations began to move. Ships that were registered as cargo haulers revealed hidden weapon bays. Freighters dropped their disguises and showed their true forms as dreadnoughts. Mining stations and asteroid belts activated weapon systems that had been waiting in silence for over a century. The human fleet numbered 2,000 warships. Not the 100 that the Galactic Council knew about. 2,000 ships designed for one purpose: total war. Captain Minho Choi stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable as it exited faster than light travel at the edge of the first Vraken system. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Yuna Lee looked up from her tactical console. "All weapons charged and ready, Captain. Fire control solutions calculated. We have targeting locks on every Vraken military installation in the system." Minho opened a fleet-wide channel. Around him, hundreds of human warships hung in space like sleeping predators finally awakened. "All ships, this is Captain Choi. For 3.1 million civilians who died on New Jeju. For every human who tried to choose peace. For our children who will never have to be this gentle again." He paused. "Show them what war looks like." The human fleet opened fire. The Vraken Third Armada had conquered 12 species in the last century. 300 warships crewed by the finest warriors of the Empire. They had never lost a battle. They had never retreated. They were the pride of War Chief Thorax's forces. They lasted 47 minutes against the human fleet. Captain Minho Choi watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as his tactical display filled with red icons. The Vraken ships were powerful, covered in armor and weapons. They were also slow, predictable, and built for intimidation rather than actual combat. "Target their command ship first," Minho ordered. "Lieutenant Yuna, fire when ready." Yuna's fingers moved across her console with practiced precision. Firing solution calculated, compensating for their evasive maneuvers, accounting for shield frequency, and firing. The Indomitable's main railgun launched a projectile at a fraction of light speed. The tungsten rod, accelerated through electromagnetic fields, struck the Vraken flagship's bridge. The ship's shields held for exactly 2.3 seconds. Then the projectile punched through armor, through bulkheads, through crew quarters, and out the other side. The flagship broke apart in a silent explosion. "Time to target 8 seconds, Yuna reported. Accuracy, 100%. Around them, the human fleet demonstrated what 150 years of hidden military development had created. Weapons that made no sound but destroyed everything they touched. Electronic warfare systems that turned enemy computers into weapons against their own ships. Kinetic bombardment at ranges that Vraken sensors couldn't even detect. The Vraken had built their military on fear and intimidation. Humanity had built theirs on mathematics and murder. Vraken ships attempting to return fire, Yuna said calmly. "Their targeting systems are too slow. They're aiming where we were, not where we are." Minho watched as another dozen Vraken ships exploded. "How many left?" 212. Correction, 207. Correction, 193. The battle was less a fight and more an execution. When the last Vraken ship tried to run, Yuna calculated its trajectory, led it by 15 seconds and placed a railgun round exactly where it would be. The ship flew directly into the projectile and disintegrated. "Third Armada destroyed," Yuna reported. "Total human casualties 0. Minho opened a channel to Admiral Sang-hoon Bayek, who commanded the overall human fleet from the dreadnought Absolute 0. "Third Armada eliminated, Admiral." Moving to next target, Beck's weathered face appeared on screen. The old Admiral had fought in the Unification Wars when Earth's nations had finally united under one government. He had seen the worst of human warfare. He had helped write Protocol Omega specifically so humanity would never have to use it. Now he was using it. "Good work, Captain. The Second Fleet is engaging Vraken forces in the Korvax system. The Fourth Fleet just took 3 Vraken supply depots. Major Yoonji Shin's special operations teams are in position on multiple Vraken worlds." "What are her orders, sir?" "To remind the Vraken that humans invented guerrilla warfare." Beck's smile was cold. Proceed to your next objective. And, Captain? Don't hold back. Not anymore. Major Yoonji Shin crouched in the darkness of a Vrakan military command center on the planet Draxus. Around her, 15 special operators moved like ghosts through enemy territory. They had infiltrated from orbit using stealth pods, spent 6 hours crossing hostile terrain, and now stood in the heart of Vrakan military operations. The Vrakan guards never saw them coming. Silenced weapons, combat knives, hand-to-hand techniques perfected over centuries of human conflict. The guards died without raising an alarm. Team 2, secure the command deck, Yoonji whispered into her comm. Team 3, plant the charges. We have 4 minutes before shift change. Her team moved with surgical precision. They weren't there to hold territory or fight a battle. They were there to send a message. Nowhere is safe. In the command center, Yoonji accessed the Vrakan military network. Her technical specialist, Corporal Junho Park, broke through their security in 90 seconds. Pathetic encryption, Junho muttered. My grandmother could crack this. Download everything. Fleet positions, supply routes, command structures, everything. Yoonji checked her timer. 2 minutes, the download completed. Yoonji uploaded a virus that would corrupt every Vrakan military database it touched. Then she left a message on every screen in the facility. You wanted to teach humanity about power. Class is now in session. Her team extracted silently. The Vrakan didn't discover the breach until the explosives detonated, destroying the entire command center and killing 300 officers. Similar operations played out on 17 Vrakan worlds in the first week. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humanity demonstrated warfare at a level they had never imagined. The other species thought they understood military conflict. They had their wars, their battles, their victories and defeats. But they fought with honor, with rules, with limits. Humans fought to win. Admiral Big stood before a holographic display showing the entire Vrakan Empire. Red zones marked areas under human attack. Blue zones marked areas under human control. In just 10 days, half the Vrakan Empire was burning. Status report, Beck commanded. His operations officer, Commander Yejin Ko, pulled up the data. All Vrakan military installations in sectors 7 through 12 are destroyed. Their 4th and 7th fleets engaged our forces and were eliminated with minimal casualties on our side. Special operations teams have neutralized command structures on 22 Vrakan worlds. Their civilian casualties? Minimal, sir. We're targeting only military assets and leadership. Rules of engagement are holding. Beck nodded. This was important. Humanity wasn't committing genocide like the Vrakan had done on New Jeju. They were fighting a war, but they were fighting it the human way. Overwhelming force applied with precision. And their response? They're panicking, sir. Vrakan forces are abandoning positions. Some ships are refusing orders. Their command structure is collapsing. Captain Minho Choi's voice came over the comm. Admiral, we're approaching the Vrakan core worlds. Resistance is strengthening. They're pulling all remaining forces back to defend their homeworld. Expected, Beck said. How many ships are they gathering? Approximately 800 warships. Every vessel they have left. Lieutenant Yuna Lee's tactical analysis appeared on the display. Their formation is defensive. They're clustering around Vrakan Prime. If we attack directly, we'll take casualties. Then we don't attack directly, Beck said. We show them what human warfare really looks like. Over the next 3 days, human forces didn't attack the Vrakan homeworld. Instead, they destroyed every supply depot, every fuel station, every repair facility and surrounding systems. The Vrakan fleet guarding their homeworld couldn't move without supplies. They were trapped. Meanwhile, human cyber warfare teams broadcast messages directly to Vrakan civilians. Not propaganda, not threats, just the truth. Images of New Jeju burning, the 3 million dead, the children who died in schools. Your leaders did this, the broadcast said. They murdered civilians to prove their strength. Now they hide behind you while humanity shows them what real strength looks like. We don't target civilians. We target those who gave the orders. On Vrakan Prime, unrest began. Civilians questioned their leaders. Why had they attacked peaceful humans? Why had they started a war they couldn't win? Why were their sons and daughters dying in space while War Chief Thorax sat safe in his fortress? Corporal Taeyang Park was part of the first wave to land on Vrakan Prime. His marine unit deployed from orbit under heavy fire. They were going after military targets only, but the Vrakan defenders fought with desperation. Contact front, someone shouted. Taeyang and his squad took cover behind a destroyed vehicle. Enemy fire ripped through the air above them. He returned fire with controlled bursts, each shot placed exactly where it needed to be. Human soldiers trained for accuracy, not volume. The battle for the military complex lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Taeyang's unit had taken their objective with only 12 casualties. The Vraken had lost 300 soldiers. As they secured the area, Taeyang found a wounded Vraken soldier. The alien was young, barely adult, probably conscripted. "Please," the Vraken gasped. "Don't kill me." Taeyang called for a medic. "We don't kill prisoners. That's what makes us different from your leaders." The medic treated the Vraken's wounds. Around them, other human soldiers did the same. They fought brutally when they had to, but they didn't execute the helpless. In orbit, Admiral Baek received word that all military objectives on Vraken Prime were secured. The Vraken Empire's ability to make war was broken. Their fleet was scattered. Their leadership was in hiding. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from War Chief Thorax," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." Thorax appeared on screen. The proud warrior looked broken. His armor was damaged. His forearms hung limply at his sides. "I request terms of surrender." "Unconditional surrender," Beck said immediately. "All Vraken military forces stand down. All weapons handed over. War crimes trials for everyone who participated in the new Jeju massacre. And you, War Chief, will face human justice." "I accept." Beck leaned forward. "You made a mistake, Thorax. You thought humans were weak because we chose peace. You learned the hard way that we weren't choosing peace because we were weak. We were choosing peace because we're strong enough to make that choice." The transmission ended. Across Vraken space, the fighting stopped. The galaxy watched as humanity proved a simple truth. The most dangerous warrior is the one who chooses not to fight until they have no other choice. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. 200 species shouted over each other, their translators creating a cacophony of competing voices. At the center of it all stood Commander Borum Han, representing humanity, while Ambassador Hana Park remained on Earth overseeing reconstruction efforts. Borum was younger than Hana, only 42, but she had served in military intelligence for 20 years. She understood warfare, she understood politics, and she understood that the galaxy was terrified. "Order." Councillor Thiva slammed his gavel. The elderly Thelvan had served on the council for 60 years and had seen many conflicts. But nothing like this. "Commander Han, you will address the accusations." A courtly representative stood, his honor-marked face twisted in anger. "The human fleet has destroyed over 1,000 Vraken warships. You have occupied 17 worlds. Your forces have killed tens of thousands. This is excessive force." Aurelian delegate's synthesized voice added, "Probability calculations suggest humanity has capacity for complete Vraken extinction. This level of military response violates 73 council regulations on proportional warfare." Borum waited for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "Show the footage." On screens throughout the chamber, images of New Jeju appeared, the beautiful colony world in daylight, then the Vraken fleet arriving, then the bombardment. Cities burning, hospitals exploding, schools melting into slag, 3 million people dying over 3 hours. The chamber went silent. "This," Borum said quietly, "is what the Vraken Empire did to a peaceful human colony. 3.1 million civilians. They targeted schools deliberately, hospitals specifically. They wanted to kill as many innocents as possible to prove their power. We understand your anger," a Thelvan diplomat said carefully, "but the council exists to mediate." "Where was the council when New Jeju burned?" Borum's voice cut like a blade. "Where was the mediation? The peacekeeping forces? The sanctions? The Vraken announced their intentions 30 days in advance and you did nothing. The Vraken Empire has always been difficult." "Difficult?" Borum pulled up more footage. Vraken conquests over 3 centuries, dozens of species subjugated or exterminated. The Vraken have committed 18 genocides in your records. 18. And the council tolerated it because fighting them was too costly. You chose comfort over justice. Councillor Thiva spoke carefully. Humanity has made its point. The Vraken have surrendered. We ask that you cease military operations. Oh, we'll cease operations. Borum projected new images. Vraken military installations destroyed. Warships captured or scrapped. Leadership in custody. But first, let me explain something about human military doctrine that you clearly don't understand. She walked to the center of the chamber. Around her, representatives from 200 species watched nervously. We don't fight wars to win. We fight wars so they never happen again. A murmur ran through the chamber. When humans go to war, we don't stop when we achieve tactical victory. We stop when we've eliminated the ability and the will to fight. Again, we don't just defeat enemies. We make absolutely certain they understand why fighting us was their worst mistake. That's barbaric, someone said. No. Barbaric is what happened to New Jeju. Borum's eyes were hard. What we're doing is justice. At that moment, Counselor Thiva stood. The old Thelvan was one of the few species who had actually studied Earth history. He had read about the world wars, the atomic bombs, the Cold War. He understood what humanity was capable of. I need to speak, Thiva said, and all of you need to listen. The chamber quieted. I have studied Earth for 40 years. I learned their languages, read their histories, watch their entertainment. And I learned something that terrifies me. He looked around at his fellow counselors. Humanity didn't join the Galactic Council because they needed our protection. They joined because we need protection from them. Shocked silence. Earth has fought wars with chemical weapons that melted flesh, biological weapons that killed millions, nuclear weapons that could end all life on their planet. They did this to themselves repeatedly for thousands of years. Thiva's voice shook, and then somehow they stopped. They unified. They chose peace. They developed technology to travel the stars and came to us asking to join our community. If they're so dangerous, why allow them membership? Akorthi asked. Because a humanity that chooses peace is infinitely better than a humanity that doesn't. And for 150 years, they kept that choice. They tolerated insults, absorbed threats, negotiated when others would have fought. Do you know why? No one answered. Because they remember what they were. They remember the wars that nearly destroyed their world. They're terrified of becoming that species again, so they locked away their weapons and their tactics and their capacity for total war. Thiva looked at Borum. Until someone gave them no choice. Back on Earth, Ambassador Hana Park stood in a memorial garden built on the ruins of the United Nations building. The garden honored everyone who had died in humanity's ancient wars. Millions of names carved in stone, a reminder of what happens when peace fails. Her communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Bayek. Ambassador, the Council is threatening military intervention. They want us to stand down immediately. On what grounds? Excessive force. Violation of proportional warfare doctrine. They're scared, Hana. They're seeing what we're capable of and they're realizing they can't control us. Hana looked at the names on the memorial stones. What's our fleet status? 2,000 warships operational. We control all strategic jump points in Vrakan territory. If the Council attacks us, we can hold them off indefinitely. Beck paused. We could probably beat them. That's what I'm afraid of. Hana closed her eyes. Position fleets at key locations. Make it clear that any interference will be met with force. But Sang-hoon, don't fire first. We need to be the ones defending ourselves if this goes wrong. Understood. And Hana? There's something else. Other species are quietly pulling their fleets back. The aggressive ones. The expansionist empires. They're all suddenly very interested in diplomacy. Good. Fear can be useful. Hana opened her eyes. But only if it comes with respect. Make sure everyone understands we're not conquering the Vrakan. We're dismantling their ability to hurt others. There's a difference. War Chief Thorax sat in a human detention facility on Providence Station. The cell was clean, temperature controlled with adequate food and water. Nothing like the prison pits where Vrakan kept their captives. Commander Borum Han entered his cell. The massive Vrakan warrior looked small now, defeated. Why haven't you killed me? Thorax asked. Because we're not you. Borum sat across from him. You'll face trial for war crimes. You'll answer for every civilian death on New Jeju. If convicted, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Your mercy is weakness. No, our mercy is strength. Borum leaned forward. Thorax, do you understand what you did wrong? I lost. No, you attacked civilians. You committed genocide to prove your power. And in doing so, you revealed that you never had true power at all. I don't understand. Real power is the ability to destroy something and choosing not to. The Vrakan Empire had warships and weapons. But you never had power. You had force, Borum stood. Humanity has both. We can destroy you completely. We could glass every Vrakan world and eliminate your species, but we won't. Not because we can't. Because we choose not to. She walked to the door, then paused. That's the difference between us, Thorax. You ruled through fear because you had nothing else. We ruled through choice, and that's a kind of power you'll never understand. In the council chamber, the debate raged for 6 more hours. Finally, Councillor Thiva called for a vote. The question before the council: should we intervene militarily to stop human operations in Vrakan territory? The vote was counted. 15 species voted yes. 185 voted no. The galaxy had made its choice. Borum Han addressed the council one final time. Humanity will complete its operations in Vrakan space. We will dismantle their military. We will hold trials for war criminals. We will establish monitoring stations to ensure they never threaten others again. And then we will return to our diplomatic role. Will you return to your policy of patience? Athelvan asked. Borum smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We will always prefer peace. We will always negotiate first. But the galaxy needs to understand something. She looked at each delegation. Our politeness was never weakness. It was a choice. We chose to be patient. We chose to compromise. We chose to absorb insults and threats. She let that sink in. But choices can be unmade. Every species that deals with humanity from now on needs to remember what happened when the Vrakan pushed too far. Remember New Jeju. Remember what we did in response. And remember that we're still being polite. The chamber was silent. We're still choosing peace. We're still holding back. The military operation you just witnessed? Borum pulled up classified documents that showed weapons systems, tactical doctrines, and strategic plans that humanity had never deployed. That was us being gentle. What do you mean? Someone asked quietly. I mean that humanity has weapons we didn't use, tactics we didn't deploy, strategies we didn't implement. We fought the Vrakan Empire with approximately 15% of our true military capacity. She closed the documents. We won a total war while fighting with both hands tied behind our backs. Then what would you do if you fought seriously? Borum's smile disappeared entirely. Pray you never find out. 6 months after the Vrakan surrender, Governor Dehosong returned to New Jeju. The world that had been his home was still wounded, the atmosphere slowly recovering from the bombardment. But humans were nothing if not persistent. Construction crews worked around the clock building a memorial at the site of Capital City. 3 million names would be carved into black stone, not a monument to victory, a reminder of the cost. Deho walked among the work crews. Many of them were Vrakan, part of the labor corps established by the peace treaty. They worked silently, carefully, placing each stone with precision. Their overseers were human, but they carried no weapons. They didn't need to. The Vrakan workers understood what they were building and why. A young Vrakan named Corvin approached Deho hesitantly. Governor, may I speak? Go ahead. I was a soldier. I followed War Chief Thorax. I believed in Vrakan strength. Corvin's forearms hung at his sides in a gesture of submission. I helped load the bombardment weapons that killed your people. Deho looked at him for a long moment. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know who is building your memorial. You should know that I helped destroy what I now honor. Corvin's voice broke. I don't ask forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I understand now. What we did. What it cost. Do you understand why we didn't exterminate your species in return? No, I don't understand that at all. Deho gestured at the construction around them. We could have killed every Vrakan in the galaxy. We had the power. But that would make us no different than Thorax. So instead, we're teaching you how to build rather than destroy. It's harder. Takes longer. But it's the only way forward. Corvin returned to work, placing stones with careful hands. On Providence Station, Ambassador Hannah Park walked into the Galactic Council chamber for the first time since the war. The atmosphere had changed. Representatives who had once patronized her now stood when she entered. Species that had dismissed human diplomatic requests now listened carefully. Councillor Thiva greeted her warmly. Ambassador Park, welcome back. We've missed your voice, have you? Or have you missed knowing where humans stand? Thiva smiled sadly. Both, perhaps. The Council would like to discuss humanity's role going forward. The session began. A Korthi representative stood first. Ambassador Park, The Korthi Confederation wishes to formalize a mutual defense treaty with Earth. We have observed your military capabilities and your restraint. We believe an alliance would benefit both our peoples. Similar requests came from 17 other species. Trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. Everyone wanted humanity's favor now. Hana listened to each request carefully. When they finished, she stood. Earth appreciates these offers. We will consider each one carefully. But first I need to address something. She looked around the chamber. The galaxy's relationship with humanity has changed. You've seen... And you did, Counselor Thiva said. For 150 years, until the Fraken. Hana's expression hardened. They thought our diplomacy was weakness. They thought our patience meant we couldn't fight. And they learned at terrible cost that they were wrong. She walked to the center of the chamber. So here's what I need the galaxy to understand. When we negotiate, it's not because we're weak. It's because we're strong enough to choose peace. When we compromise, it's not because we must. It's because we prefer solutions to violence. When we're patient with insults and threats, it's not because we can't respond. It's because we remember what response costs. Aurelian delegate spoke up. Are you saying we should fear humanity? I'm saying you should respect our choices. Because every time we negotiate rather than fight, every time we compromise rather than conquer, every time we're patient rather than aggressive, we're making a choice, and choices can be unmade. The chamber absorbed this truth in silence. Captain Minho Choi sat in his quarters aboard the Indomitable. The ship was being decommissioned, returned to its disguise as a cargo hauler. Most of the human fleet would return to hidden status. Only 100 warships would remain visible, registered with the Council. Lieutenant Yuna Lee knocked on his door. Permission to enter? Granted. She sat across from him looking troubled. Captain, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Did we do the right thing? Everything we did to the Vraken. Was it justice or revenge? Minho considered the question carefully. Both, maybe. Justice for the people who died. Revenge that we kept controlled and measured. We didn't exterminate them. We didn't target their civilians. We destroyed their military and held their leaders accountable. That's as close to justice as war ever gets. But we enjoyed it, Yuna said quietly, when we were destroying their fleet. When we were winning so easily. I felt satisfaction, maybe even joy. Does that make us monsters? No, it makes us human. Minho stood and looked out at the stars. Our ancestors fought brutal wars. They took satisfaction in defeating enemies. But they also learned when to stop, when to show mercy, when to rebuild rather than destroy further. He turned back to her. We're not monsters for feeling satisfaction in victory. We'd be monsters if we didn't know when to stop winning. On Earth, Admiral Sang-Hoon Baek stood in the war archives. This classified facility held records of every conflict humanity had ever fought. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges, world wars with tanks and aircraft, nuclear standoffs, and now the Vraken War. A young officer, Ensign Kyungmin Lee, accompanied him on the tour. Sir, why do we keep such detailed records of all our wars? So we remember, so we never forget what violence costs. Baek stopped at a display showing weapons that had been developed but never used against the Vraken, biological weapons that could have ended their species in weeks, nanite weapons that could have disassembled their worlds atom by atom, quantum bombs that could have erased them from existence. We could have used these? Kyungmin asked, horrified. We could have. We chose not to. Baek moved to another display. The Vraken saw 15% of humanity's military capability. That was enough to crush their empire, but we held back the truly terrible weapons, the ones that end civilizations rather than defeat armies. Why? Because we might need to hold them back again. Because showing the galaxy everything we have would terrify them into attacking us preemptively. And because some weapons should never be used at all. Baek looked at the young officer. This facility exists to remind future generations what we're capable of, and to remind them why we choose not to use that capability. The trial of War Chief Thorax lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented methodically. Footage of the New Jeju bombardment, testimony from survivors, analysis of the orders Thorax had given. His defense argued he was following Vraken military doctrine, that he didn't understand humans valued civilian life, that cultural differences explained his actions. The human judges listened to everything. Then they delivered their verdict. Guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. Thorax was sentenced to life imprisonment. No death penalty. Humans had abolished that centuries ago. After the sentencing, Ambassador Hannah Park visited Thorax in his cell. The former war chief looked up as she entered. "You've won. Why come here?" "To tell you something." Hannah sat down. "When your fleet burned New Jeju, you thought you were demonstrating strength, teaching a lesson about power. You believed violence would make species fear and respect you. And I was wrong," Thorax said bitterly. "Partially wrong. You made species fear you. But fear without respect creates enemies, not subjects. True power isn't making others afraid to fight you. True power is making them not want to fight you. I don't understand the difference, I know. That's why you lost." Hannah stood. "You'll spend the rest of your life in this cell thinking about the 3 million people who died, because you couldn't tell the difference between fear and respect. Between force and power, between victory and strength." She left him alone with his thoughts. 6 months became a year. The galaxy adjusted to the new reality. Aggressive species became cautious. Territorial disputes that might have led to war were suddenly resolved through negotiation. When humans suggested diplomatic solutions, others listened. The Vrakan Empire was divided into 47 independent systems, each with human monitoring stations. The Vrakan people learned new skills: farming instead of conquering, building instead of destroying, negotiating instead of demanding. On Providence Station, Ambassador Hannah Park stood in the observation deck with Counselor Thiva. The old Thelvan had become a friend over the past year. "The galaxy has changed," Thiva said. "Species that once relied on force now seek diplomatic solutions. Species that once ignored the Council now participate actively, all because they saw what happened to the Vrakan." "Fear keeping the peace," Hannah said. "It works, but it's not what we wanted." "What did you want?" "For species to choose peace because it's right, not because they're afraid of the alternative." She looked at the stars. "But maybe that's unrealistic. Maybe fear is the first step. Maybe eventually it becomes habit, and habit becomes culture, and culture becomes genuine preference." "Is that what happened with humanity?" Hannah smiled. "We fought ourselves nearly to extinction. Then we were so afraid of doing it again that we chose peace. At first it was just fear. But over time it became who we are. We prefer diplomacy now. We prefer building to destroying. We prefer negotiation to violence. But you can still fight." "Yes, we can still fight. And that's important." She turned to face him. "Because a peace maintained only by those who can't fight is just a temporary pause in war. True peace comes when those who can fight choose not to. So you'll return to diplomacy? To patience?" "We never left." Hannah gestured to the council chamber. "Every day we negotiate rather than dictate. We're choosing diplomacy. Every time we compromise rather than conquer, we're choosing patience. The galaxy just understands now that it's a choice." On New Jeju, the memorial was completed. 3 million names carved in black stone, arranged in concentric circles around a central flame. The flame burned with gas from the planet's recovering atmosphere, a symbol of renewal. Governor Daeho Song stood before the memorial with thousands of survivors. Vrakan workers stood respectfully at the edge of the crowd, the ones who had helped build what they had helped destroy. "We gather here to remember," Daeho said, his voice carried by speakers across the memorial grounds. 3 million souls who died when the Vrakan Empire decided to teach humanity a lesson about power. They succeeded, but not in the way they intended. He gestured to the memorial. These names represent fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, teachers and doctors, farmers and artists. They died in our politeness. They died because we chose peace, and their deaths taught the galaxy a truth we had hoped never to demonstrate, that human politeness is a choice, not a limitation. We rebuilt this world. We brought the Vrakan to justice. We showed the galaxy what happens when human restraint is broken. But we also showed them something more important, that even in war, even in victory, even in revenge, humans can still show mercy. We could have exterminated the Vrakan. We chose not to. That choice honors these 3 million dead more than any amount of violence ever could. The ceremony ended in silence. People filed past the memorial, touching names, leaving flowers, saying goodbye. Above them, in orbit, the monitoring station that would ensure this never happened again maintained its quiet vigil. A reminder that humanity watched, And that humanity remembered. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Hannah Park prepared for another day of negotiation, territory disputes to mediate, trade agreements to finalize, cultural misunderstandings to resolve. The ordinary work of diplomacy. As she walked to her seat, she noticed how other species moved aside respectfully, how they listened when she spoke, how they considered her suggestions carefully. Was it respect or fear? She wondered. Probably both, and maybe that was enough. She took her seat and smiled at Counselor Theva. Shall we begin? Indeed, Ambassador. We have a full agenda today. Then let's get to work. The galaxy turned and humanity remained. Patient, diplomatic, polite, and absolutely terrifyingly capable of being otherwise.